Hi, everybody. My name is Zeke Spear. I'm the Executive Director of Social Justice Fund Northwest, and over the next half hour, I'm going to share a little bit with you about our process of incorporating next generation leadership into our organization and how it really transformed the way we do our work and made us much more strong and much more sustainable. So to start, I actually just want to share a little bit about who we are as an organization. So Social Justice Fund, our mission is to build progressive power through donor organizing. And through engaging donors, raising money, what we do with those funds is make grants to support grassroots social justice organizing throughout our region. And our region is 5 states: Oregon, Washington, Idaho, Montana, and Wyoming. And we've been doing this for a long time. We were founded in 1978. We've gone through a huge number of transitions over the course of our history, but today we have over 800 members and over $1 million budget, and that budget is actually growing, largely thanks to the work that we've done around next generation leadership. And that's a different story than we were telling 2 or 3 years ago when we were really in the midst of a pretty serious financial crisis. And I think our story isn't too much different from the story of many other organizations all around the country, but we were stuck with donors who were facing their own financial crises, and also from foundations who were reprioritizing and cutting back their funding because of their experience of the financial crisis. And we were really in a position where we needed to figure out what we could do to survive. It was really a question of, could Social Justice Fund remain a viable organization into the future? And there was lots of issues that we had to deal with, but one of them that I was very aware of, at that time I was the associate director of the organization, that there was very, very few young people involved. We didn't have exact statistics on it, but our average age was probably close to 60 years old. And these were the founders and folks who gotten engaged over our history, who were incredibly passionate, valuable supporters, but there hadn't been really a new generation of folks who plugged in. So as we were thinking about these big questions of how to transform our organization, I really decided I wanted to spend my time focusing on trying to engage younger people into our work. And so what I did with other folks is put together a project which we called the Next Generation Giving Project. So our goals through this project were relatively modest. We wanted to engage younger people, but specifically engage younger people across class and race. Social Justice Fund has a long history of trying to do really effective racial justice funding and also racial justice organizing within our organization. And this was a value that we really wanted to carry forward, especially in engaging what is a generation that grew up with much different racial politics and actually a more diverse generation than the one that came before. So as we wanted to engage younger people, it was really important to us to engage the full spectrum of younger people. We set a goal to raise and grant $50,000, which we thought was relatively ambitious. And we thought we could get to this target, especially because we wanted to engage folks across class as well. One of the key partners that we reached out to as we started this work was the local chapter of an organization called Resource Generation, which is a national organization that organizes young people to move their financial wealth towards social justice work. And they have local chapters all around the country. And so we worked really closely with the local chapter here in Seattle to, over a pretty long period of time, to build relationships and really get their vision and their ideas into what this project could look like. We also had a goal to build community. We thought it was really important to sustain any of this work in the future. You might hear thunder right now. I'm calling here from Seattle, and we're having a rare thunderstorm, so that's pretty exciting. But in any case, we really knew that if we didn't build community, then this wouldn't last very long, and it wouldn't be very meaningful for this group of folks that we wanted to pull into our organization. And then finally, we were really explicit from the beginning that we wanted to develop new leaders. We thought that folks that participated in this project could engage at all levels in our organization, and we knew that we wanted to meet that goal from the very beginning. And of course, to have fun in the process. That I think it's really obvious that young people these days aren't looking for a tough slog of folks who are looking to have a good time and enjoy the processes of organizing and doing social change work. So I'm going to share a little bit more about how this actually worked. So we engaged and recruited 18 young people to participate in this process. And this group really ended up being one of the more diverse groups that I've ever worked with in my life. We had everything from folks who inherited millions of dollars to folks who grew up in Indian reservations and refugee camps, everyone in between, every category of diversity that you can imagine, LGBTQ, immigrant, working class white folks, was represented, and that really made it a really exciting group to work with. And we asked these folks to commit to 8 meetings over the course of about 6 months. So I'm going to describe a little bit about what the process was like that we took folks through. So we took this building community thing really seriously and spent a full day meeting actually just focusing on sort of our personal stories, why we care about social justice work, and what are the shared values and goals that the group has together. And it's really amazing to actually be in a group of folks from such different backgrounds, but who really do share a common vision of a more just and equitable world. And that really set the project off on the right foot. We also spent time wanting to really focusing on deepening analysis, because the reality is if you bring folks together with this level of diversity into a room, we have to be real about those differences. And so we actually spent a full day actually focusing on class and telling our stories of our class backgrounds and really focusing that on what messages did we get around money and what messages did we get around giving growing up. That was a really inspiring conversation, not the least of which because it became really clear that there's so much valuable giving that happens across all class backgrounds in the United States. I think most of you know that lower income folks give a higher percentage of their income than higher income folks, and sort of the attitudes that were really behind that sort of philanthropy that's ingrained into everyday life really came out in this conversation. And then we wanted to develop skills. So we focused both on grant-making skills, because we were going to ask these groups to participate in a democratic grant-making process to decide where the money goes, which is actually the same process that we've used for much of our history as well, but also training on fundraising. Not only were we asking each person who participated in this project to make a personally meaningful financial contribution, we were also asking each of them to raise money from their friends and family. So as we did this fundraising training, we were really careful to emphasize, this isn't sort of shake down your friends on Facebook, send out a couple emails, and collect a bunch of $20, $30, $40, $50 contributions. What we were really asking is for folks to, what we mean by that is actually try to get folks involved in the work through the experience of asking them for a financial contribution. So what this meant is schedule one-on-one face-to-face asks, ask for meaningful gifts, ask the amount that folks are going to actually have to stop and think about it for a second. And, since we were asking folks to do this, we, gave them a really significant amount of training and a one-on-one support so that they felt confident making those asks. As I said, folks were both donating and raising money, and then finally going through this democratic grant-making process. And I want to share a little bit more about that just because it's a unique process where we actually use a consensus-based model to make our decisions. And you can imagine the kind of conversations that folks have when they get really passionate about some of the organizations that we're evaluating. That consensus-based model takes a lot of time and discussion. But through a couple meetings, we are able to really talk through strategy of social change work, what work is underfunded, and really end up with some really powerful decisions that the whole group can get behind. So, what happened from this project? Well, we set that goal of $50,000, and we actually ended up raising $135,000. And what was so amazing about that was that this wasn't about the wealthy folks just giving most of that money. What this really represented is folks across that class spectrum stepping up, giving and raising really substantial amounts. We're talking about folks who, have the personal capacity, maybe just giving a couple $100s, which is the most that they'd ever given, raising thousands of dollars to add into the pool. So this really blew us away, and we really had no idea that there was that much capacity in sort of a wide spectrum of young people who got really passionate about this work. We had over 100 new donors from this. This is in terms of a new donor cultivation model, getting 100 new donors through this amount of investment was really amazing for us because, we're a membership model where our donors actually are in pretty strong relationships with us. So having 100 new donors to cultivate and, stick into our pipeline to really, build towards deeper engagement was a really fantastic outcome for us. And we realized that through these folks that we engaged, we now had access to a brand new, strong and diverse network of young people all throughout the city. And this, we were really surprised about the reverberations of this new network. Everything from new grantees that we got access to, everything from new venues that we heard Social Justice Fund being actually discussed, that we weren't even there, that really seemed like we'd opened up a pretty a number of different doors that will lead towards, again, many new opportunities to engage folks. And new leaders. We actually had 3 of the people who were participants in this project join our board within 3 or 4 months after the project was over. We also had 3 or 4 others join leadership teams to help us move this work forward. And then almost everyone else has stayed involved in one way or another. So pretty good outcomes in terms of leaders in our organization. So with the success of this project, we really saw the power of how, this issue of engaging young people wasn't a marginal question to our organization-wide challenges. It could actually be a central part of our solution. So the story of 2011 and 2012, I'm sorry, I don't think I mentioned that our first project was actually in 2010, was really about activating next generation leadership throughout our organization. So in 2011, coming off of this great success, our board came together and really decided that we wanted to double down on the strategy and see if we could use it throughout the organization. And started by building a next generation staff. So I was asked to step up to the executive director role, and I was able to catalyze enough excitement among our donor base to actually get the resources to hire some next generation key staff that would help us drive this work forward. We had 5 new next gen board members, 3 of which came through the project and 2 of which we were able to recruit from outside sources. So it made our board actually majority under 40. So really changed the dynamics of the way our board worked. And we took all this energy to actually launch 5 of these giving projects across issues and identities throughout our region. So, we not only focused on young people in some of the projects, we also focused on trying to engage some of our longtime folks in these projects. And what we ended up with is somewhere around 2/3 of young people in the projects and about 1/3 who came from other communities. And that sort of cross-generation work ended up being really exciting to both generations, and I think led to increased engagement of both generations. So as you see here on my slide, we ended up raising $375,000 through those 5 projects, and we actually doubled our organizational membership. It was around 400, and it jumped all the way up to 800 in a single year. And as you all know, 2011 wasn't exactly, a really hot year for fundraising. And we're still driving this forward. As I say, we're growing. This year, we've launched 8 giving projects. We've already raised more than last year, and we're just about halfway through our process. Our goal is about 60% revenue growth through our giving projects this year. And it's really exciting to see that progress play out. And part of what's made that possible is about 20 new leaders. And these are leaders that have made significant investment in our work. These are those board members. There are leadership team members that are helping to recruit and plan and also carry out all 8 of those giving projects. These are folks who have started new committees to do member engagement, to plan events. These are folks that are really deeply committed to our organization. And, we frankly, we probably didn't have 5 of these kind of leaders before we really invested in this work. So we had a number of lessons learned from engaging in this work, and I want to share some of those with you. The first is that as we asked more from folks, we got much more. And this was really a lesson because we fell into the trap before we engaged in this work that we wanted to make it as easy as possible for folks to plug in, the least amount of time, the least commitment. And we're really worried that if we asked folks to engage deeply that they would run away. But what we really found, and I think it's especially true for younger folks, that what makes people keep coming back is the deep connection. And we asked a pretty significant commitment from folks. We're talking about, 8 meetings, full days, evenings, fundraising, reading dozens and dozens of applications, traveling all around our region to do site visits with grantees. And what we keep finding is no matter how much we were asking, folks were stepping up to it and even asking for more from us. They wanted more meetings, more trainings, more workshops. And so, at this point, we're really not afraid of asking folks to make really strong commitments, even board-level commitments as people who are brand new to our organization. The second lesson is that there really is this pool of untapped energy and resources. I've talked to so many other folks who talk about their sort of next generation engagement plan as, oh, well, maybe they'll give money in 10 years and we just want to keep them connected to the organization for now. But, the generation of folks that, for example, is graduating college right now, they have disposable income and they're really looking to use it for meaningful, in meaningful ways. And, just by asking, we're accessing this huge amount of wealth that is pretty much untapped by most other organizations. We've also learned that intentional leadership development works, that, with providing folks more responsibility, folks are stepping up to that and asking for more. So the number of people now who are moving up the ladder, starting with fundraising through one of these projects, but then recruiting participants for these projects, and then joining our board to help us plan more projects that we can recruit for, it's really multiplying the impact of what we're able to do. And it took that intentional first step and then making sure that folks had a step forward to follow at every stage of the way. And then the power of intentionally cross-class and cross-race community. I don't think we could have done this if we said everyone has to give $500 to participate. Part of what made this project so powerful and so exciting was the diversity of voices that we had in the room. We asked for no minimum contribution to participate, and we asked folks to dig deep and think hard about what a meaningful contribution was for them. And the truth was that everyone stepped up. In fact, our lowest contribution from our participant was $300, which was probably more than we would have asked for as a minimum commitment if we had actually gone through that process. So, when you think about engaging folks cross-class and cross-race, it's not just because of the value, and it's not the values and the morality of doing so. It's also because it makes it more effective, and there's a certain kind of catalytic energy that these cross-identity relationships, really push forward. So, for us in doing this work, it really took a pretty serious internal crisis to decide to take these steps. But I don't think it has to. I think organizations can actually get in front of this, trend towards engaging next generation folks and bring some intentionality to the process of doing so. So what I'd like to share sort of to close here is what I think it takes organizationally to do this kind of work. So I think the number one thing that it takes is authentic relationships. If we hadn't actually brought next generation folks into leadership on our staff and board, there's no way that we would have been able to successfully recruit the dozens, in fact more than 100 folks now that have participated in these projects. And those relationships that we pulled on were authentic relationships that folks had in community. And the first participants were people that we knew, people that we known through professional networks and personal networks that were looking for a way to meaningfully participate in social justice philanthropy. There's a lot of untapped resources and energy in next generation folks, but we can smell inauthenticity a mile away. And we know when we're being pandered to. So authentic relationships are a really key part of making this work. It's also going to take really significant openness to change on the part of an organization. We were clear when we reached out to the local resource generation chapter that we couldn't just say, we want you to participate in our organization, why don't you become a donor? It was a back and forth, and we really had to be open to what they were looking for. And then as we engaged folks across class and cross race, we had to listen and really be open to what folks were looking for. So, can't fit a square peg in a round hole, and engaging a new generation means opening up the whole organization to transforming the way we do our work. One of the things that was really exciting about this is I think that there was some reticence on the part of our board as we were moving into these changes that our long-term supporters would feel uncomfortable or upset about these kind of changes that we were making, but that actually didn't come to pass at all. In fact, folks are so excited from the older generation to see this new energy that was coming in that most of them have actually doubled down and increased their commitment as well. And, Social Justice Fund is an organization where everyone has an opinion. So, that we're not a group of followers, and so, but even still, this change actually went much more smoothly than any of us originally thought it would. And then it really takes connecting deeply. This does not work as a one evening a month happy hour. To get to this kind of leadership that we really were trying to get, we're asking people to talk about real deep personal stuff about their families, their attitudes, their opinions. Really connect deeply to this deep social change work that our grantees are doing about dealing with issues around racism and wealth inequality and all these things that really matter to us as individuals and to us as a society. And so I think that means that this kind of work won't actually be effective unless you find that deep connection that folks have. It's not a hobby, it's not a trend, but really something that fundamentally connects folks with their shared humanity. And then finally, inclusivity and diversity. Like I said, the next generation is more diverse than the one that came before, and there's no way to do this work without trying to be, and not only trying, but taking really strong steps towards inclusivity. Like I said on the previous slide, it makes it more effective as well as making it sort of more just, and the exploration that we can do as organizations through this work of inclusivity and diversity makes all of our work stronger. So, in closing, I just sort of like to challenge folks to think about what next generation leadership would look like, what changes you'd have to make, and really just say that, the impact that it's had on our organization has been, turning a pretty serious deficit into a surplus, into growth, and really thanks to the engagement of next generation leaders. So, I'm glad to answer any questions, and really thank you for taking the time to listen to our story.